people who love football in North America. And I mean the proper kind, where you only use your feet. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Back to the massive game last night. Tottenham missing their chance to put West Ham one step closer to the Championship and put some real life between them and the relegation zone after that 1-1 draw. And I'm delighted to say that host of the Spurs Chat Podcast, Chris Cowlin, joins the show now. Chris, how are you doing, sir? How are you feeling? 7 points from the last nine's a good result, right?
Will Master, yeah, good morning, good afternoon to you. Nice to be on with you. Frustrated last night. It was a must-win. How many times have us Spurs fans said it is a must-win this season? But, you know, Roberto De Zerbi has come in. He deserves huge credit because we could have been gone by now. He has picked up points for us in the last 4 games, 2 wins, 2 draws. We perhaps should have won, you know, both the home games under him in the league, but we haven't won at home in the league for 5 months. And as we all know, it's going to be now a very nervous 12 days, the remaining, 12 days of this Premier League campaign, and Spurs need to give absolutely everything. All eyes are on Sunday's game. Of course, West Ham travel to Newcastle. But, you know, I want to sit here and be really positive. But the 2 games that we have left, Chelsea away, we've won once there in 36 years. That was in 2018. The previous win there, you'd need to go back to 1990, Gary Lineker scoring for us. And, you know, the other game, the last game of the season, Everton at home. And like I just said, we haven't won at home in the Premier League for 5 months. So I tell you what, it's going to be a dramatic 12 days, I think.
Just imagine this, though, Chris. And I'm getting so ahead of my skis here, it's unbelievable. And we'll talk about last night, I promise you. Imagine West Ham go to Newcastle and lose on Sunday. And then you go on the road to Stamford Bridge on Tuesday. They're hurting after the FA Cup
It'd be
final.
amazing.
And you guarantee your Premier League survival with a win over one of your fiercest rivals, a team who have dominated you over the years. I mean, we're talking about Rory Jennings on this very station saying that it would be as big as winning a cup competition to him if they got to relegate Spurs, and you could flip it on their heads. I think that's a glorious thing. That's a glorious thing.
I like you. I tell you what, I've got goosebumps you saying that. Goosebumps. That'd be absolutely incredible. That really would. Of course, Chelsea are playing the FA Cup final. Let's hope that, they're all tired from that game to go into Tuesday's game. But of course, we know that, that Chelsea and Tottenham game is going to be absolutely huge. This is a stadium where I absolutely hate going to, by the way. This is, big rivalry. And of course, they stopped us winning the Premier League 10 years ago. And, they could have a big hand in relegating Spurs. But I just really hope that De Zerbi's Tottenham really do turn up and we see a performance like we did at Aston Villa a week or so ago.
So what is it about being at home that this team has struggled? Hasn't had a win since December 6th.
2-18.
Despite all the managers that have come by and all the hope and optimism that De Zerbi could finally get 3 points at home, why has it not happened?
Yeah, Master, it's been a very, very tough campaign. Thomas Frank, of course, came in. We couldn't really get going under Thomas Frank at all. He should have gone out the door a lot sooner, in my opinion. Igor Tudor come in for a 44-day stint. That was a waste of time. De Zerbi, as I said, we've played twice at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the Premier League, and I feel like we were unlucky not to win, both of those games. We should have been a little bit more clinical in the final third. But when you look at the forward line, that needs to be a lot better. But I just feel like there's, players have underperformed this campaign, particularly at home. I feel like some of the players are nervous. You could go down the route of saying that we've had so many injuries. That is another thing that needs to be addressed by the football club in the summer. The recruitment has been poor, but the injury record has been, a disaster, under Ange Postecoglou last season and under 3 managers this season. So there are a mixture of different reasons, but I do love the way that De Zerbi has come in. And he said, no time for excuses. We can't cry about it. We're not relegated yet. And let's face it, we're sitting here. We are 2 points above the drop zone. So it is still in Tottenham's hands. So it is about delivering in these final 2 games and every single player being up for it.
Our American followers will understand this, but there's not a power station anywhere near your training facility or anything like that.
I was going to ask. Look, but Real Madrid's deals with the same situation too. It's just very interesting. These multi-purpose stadiums in Tottenham and Real Madrid, unfortunately, dealing with a ton of injuries. It just doesn't make any sense.
I do want to know, though, all that talk about, De Zerbi's come in, said no excuses, passed off in the injuries, and look, it's the same team that played Villa and was so good a week earlier. He did last night here on talkSPORT take some digs at the referee and essentially suggest that the difference between what happened on Sunday, maybe affecting the refereeing go forwards, could have had an effect on this game. You've got to talk to us about your take on the penalty incident, both of them, and the take on just the entire refereeing performance last night.
Yeah, well, I think both of them are penalties, actually. And I know you're going to probably laugh and say, well, you're a Spurs fan. You're going to say that, last minute penalty, was a penalty. But I think it was. And when you're talking about the referee, Jared Gillett, I thought that was a terrible performance, by the way. And refereeing and officiating this season in the Premier League, not just Spurs games, I think has been at an all-time low. I think it has been really, really poor quality. And it's interesting because you mentioned about the referee. He went over to, inside the first 15 minutes, the linesman, the fourth official, and the referee all went over to De Zerbi 3 different instants and basically said to him, do not come out of that technical area. And De Zerbi said in the press conference as well, the referee said to me very early on, if you come out, you're going to get yellow carded. Now, who do we see running down the touchline every single game? I'll let you tell me rather than me tell you. But come on,
Master, the man between us, as you look at it on screen,
it's absolutely ridiculous. There's one rule for one and another rule for another, and refereeing this season has been terrible. But Jared Gillett had a really poor game last night, in my opinion.
Chris, I will agree with you to an extent because actually, I think on reflection and watching it back and everything else, I do think it was a penalty. I think that James Maddison got a touch on the ball, but I also believe that if he doesn't make that decision on the field, I don't like VAR overturning that. The whole point of it being in place is clear and obvious, and it took 30 minutes to find the right angle on TV last night before they could show us that Maddison definitely touched the ball first. And so, yes, the on-field decision maybe needs to be better, but there's a lot of Spurs fans getting angry about VAR in our mentions, and I really don't think that they did the wrong thing last night. I think they shouldn't have overturned it either way. If you'd given it, I also don't think they should have taken it away.
I agree with that too.
I think VAR performed its job correctly last night. Not sure that
once again
I can say the same about the referees.
We haven't had a penalty in 36 games in the Premier League this campaign, so I think that says it all.
I mean, it probably says more about the performance of Spurs than it does the officiating. But you find yourself in this position, and after West Ham dropping 3 points, only taking a point from this, what is the sentiment from Spurs fans at this point with 2 matches left? Was it nervous going into this match? Is it any better now, knowing you're still in control? How do Spurs fans feel today? Referees aside.
Yeah, there's a lot of nerves, and I think we're all feeling very, very anxious because, I'm not being arrogant about this. Spurs should never be in this position. We finished 17th last year, won the Europa League, and winning the Europa League was meant to be a springboard of success, and transfer windows haven't been good enough at all. I could sit here for hours talking about transfer windows, but, we felt very nervous going into this game. But then some people felt confident that we were going to, really show up and get the 3 points. But Leeds last night, this was no easy game. Leeds are one of the most informed Premier League teams at the moment, and this wasn't an easy game. They were certainly up for the fight. And, some of the neutrals said that, they'll be sitting on the beach. It's okay, they're safe. It's between West Ham and Spurs. They weren't sitting on the beach at all. That was a hard game against Leeds United. They gave absolutely everything. But as I said earlier, full focus now. All Spurs fans will be drinking Newcastle Brown Ale on Sunday and Sam YI, man. So it's all about Newcastle. We'll all be Newcastle fans on Sunday for sure.
That's the most Cockney-sounding Geordie I've ever sounded. What we say, YI, man.
That's it.
How do you inject a bit of quality? Like with all the injuries, with everything else going on, I think what really told between the Villa game, and maybe it is the problem of being away from home and the style of play versus being at home, but man, particularly the first half, it was frustrating to watch that team operate in the final third.
Well, do you know what, Will? You talk about the Aston Villa game. De Zerbi has got the best out of some of the players which haven't been performing this season. Conor Gallagher, for instance, his performance against Aston Villa was sensational. You guys mentioned Kinski before I come on. A couple of world-class saves last night. So, he's getting the best out of some of these players. We can't sit here and keep crying about injuries and keep saying about injuries, because we are missing key players. But as I also referenced, the 3 up front, Richarlison, Tell, and Mawani, there is a real quality difference. When you talk in recent years, when you've had the likes of Son and Kane, to now going to Mawani, Richarlison and Tell with respect, there is a real quality difference. And
no one thinks you're being disrespectful after watching last night. I promise you that, Chris. I do promise you that.
Not at all.
Well, but what I would say is, if we do get over the line and we are a Premier League team for next season, and I will reference a transfer window again, Spurs need to show real ambition and real quality needs to come in the door.
But they've tried though. I feel like every summer we hear Spurs being tied to certain players, and one reason or another, they never are able to get it through the finish line, or
exactly
a situation like Eze. A lot of these different players end up going elsewhere, and they end up having to fall to Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. I don't know why that is, but it's been very difficult for players to commit to Spurs in the summer window. Do you know why?
Well, back in January, the CEO, Vinay Venkatesham, actually addressed this problem about the wage structure. And the wage structure at the football club has been a big obstacle of us getting in, top players. So now they are looking to change that. I think they changed that with Conor Gallagher in the January transfer window. So hopefully Spurs will be paying, top wages now. 2 players potentially coming in. But the transfer windows need to be a lot better. Recruitment needs to be a lot better because, we've always gone after certain players. But as you mentioned Eze there, Morgan Gibbs-White. There are so many players that we could have had, but we're not getting them over the line. And that is the big problem.
And look, you've already referenced it. We are getting, again, I've been over my skis once more. If you do survive, you said it, 17th last season.
It's not over.
17th again this season, if you survive. How... You're talking about the transfer window. That's a very clear indication. You've got to try and get a lot of players out of the club as well. I really struggled to see that even with the effect De Zerbi's had, how Tottenham elevate themselves to being a top half of the table team, a challenging for European team, and how you don't end up in that horrible doldrum that teams end up in for 3-4 years at a time, where they just can't get out of being in a relegation battle.
You're absolutely right, Will. But major changes need to be made across, all departments at the football club, and major changes need to be made. Major amounts of money needs to be spent in the right areas, and the recruitment needs to be so much better, because this has been a problem for the last couple of years. And we've been through so many different managers. You go from Pochettino now up to Roberto De Zerbi. We can't keep going around in circles. Major changes need to be made. A lot of people have said that they want the Lewis family to sell up. If they feel like they have taken Spurs as far as they can, then a sale definitely needs to happen, because, we've got a wonderful stadium, we've got wonderful training facilities. Every single pundit, you guys say it all the time about, Tottenham's facilities and Tottenham Stadium. Everyone says it, but it is about what Pochettino said in 2019. It is about the furniture in the mansion.
Look, Chris, brilliant stuff from you. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Good luck.
As a neutral, I want it to go to the final day of the season. But there's a little bit of me for you that would love you to go and win a Stamford Bridge to stay up.
Do you guys think we're staying up or not?
As an Arsenal fan, I'm actually rooting for Spurs to stay up, because North London Derby's been a domination on one side, and also you guys took 4 points off of City, so it'd be something. I feel like I'd missed the North London Derby and the
You've handed Arsenal the title. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
What a kick!
And we handed you guys a great opportunity. So
I'm not here to talk about them.
That's a great answer from you, Chris. Brilliant. I err towards Spurs staying up, but I think you're right. I think they've got the tougher of the games remaining. So we will wait and see. And of course, report for you here on the S Word, the brilliant Chris Cowlin. Check out his fantastic stuff. His podcast on his YouTube channel. Brilliant follow there. Well worth your time. And also check us out on all those places that you can see right here. I'm trying to get my hand so it's actually in shot.
Go ahead, man.
I've got a little bit of a funny bend, but at talkSPORT S Word on Instagram, on X, and on the YouTube channel as well. I'd love to hear from you there. Get in the chat. We're going to talk Jose Mourinho up next, because it is looking increasingly likely, after Ramon Calderon himself told us it was a terrible idea last week, that Jose, the special one, is going to be back in the Bernabeu this season.